Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by the Family Forest Carbon Program, where we help family forest owners get paid to improve the health of their woods. Well, currently 56 degrees outside here at the farm this morning, and I usually will say I live on a quiet road, but not lately. Farmers have been working around the clock to get this planting season wrapped up before the rain comes in later this week. We'll have a full forecast update to see what farmers can expect towards the end of the week. Looking at the calendar, powered by Soy Biodiesel, make sure you tune in at midday as we get an update and visit with the folks at Ohio's Corn and Wheat. Well, China says the United States has violated their trade truce. A new sign of deteriorating relations between the United States and China happened on Monday as China accused the United States of violating the trade truce the country signed last month. Axios said China promised to take resolute and forceful steps. The agreement signed in Switzerland led to a deal to lower tariffs on each other for 90 days while they negotiated on trade. Late last week, the United States President Donald Trump accused Beijing of violating the agreement one day after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described negotiation as a bit stalled. A spokesperson from the Chinese Commerce Ministry said Beijing rejects these unjustified accusations. While President Donald Trump didn't go into details, administration officials have pointed to delays in sending critical minerals to the United States, which are needed by several U.S. industries, including agriculture. Well, the U.S. Ag Secretary Brooke Rowland said her agency is deploying resources to assist the wildfire response in Canada. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center raised the wildfire preparedness level to 5 in late May as the country is experiencing very high to extreme wildfire activity. USDA deployed an air tanker to Alberta, and the United States is mobilizing over 150 firefighters and support personnel to assist Canada with its wildfire response. The U.S. is also mobilizing other equipment like sprinkler kits, pumps, and hoses. We are here to help our neighbors during their time of need, and our forest fire wildland firefighters are the best in the business, Rowland said. I'm thankful for the brave men and women who are stepping up to serve and pray for their success as they fight fires and save lives. The current fire activity in the United States remains near normal. Well, as farmers continue to work hard this planting season, let's see how they're getting along. Coverage of the Ohio Crop Progress Report is sponsored by Unleaded 88. Save on fuel with the blue handle. Fill up with Unleaded 88. Discover more at ohiocornandwheat.org. Starting with the national numbers, 93% of the corn was planted nationwide as of Sunday. That's 3 points ahead of the 90% last year and consistent with the 5-year average. As we look to the crop development, 78% of the corn had emerged as of Sunday. That is 6 points ahead of last year's 72% and 1 point ahead of the 5-year average of 77%. As for its crop condition, estimated 69% of the crop was in good to excellent condition, up 1 point from 68% the previous week, but 6 points below last year's 75%. As we look to soybeans, planting moved ahead 8 points last week to reach 84% complete as of Sunday. That was 7 percentage points ahead of last year's 77% and 4 percentage points ahead of the 5-year average of 80%. As for its crop development, 63% of the soybeans had emerged as of Sunday. That is 10 points ahead of last year's 53% and 6 points ahead of the 5-year average of 57%. As for its crop condition, 67% of the soybeans had emerged and were in good to excellent condition. As we look to winter wheat, an estimated 52% of the winter wheat was rated good to excellent as of June 1st, up 2 points from 50% the previous week and 3 points ahead from 49% a year ago. As for its crop development, 83% of the winter wheat was headed nationwide as of Sunday. That's 1 percentage point ahead of last year's 82% and 4 points ahead of the 5-year average. Now for your numbers from the Buckeye State. Even with Ohio farmers making notable strides in planting over the past week, crop development continues to trail historical averages. According to the USDA's latest crop progress report, 72% of Ohio's corn has been planted, up from 34% 2 weeks prior, but still behind the 5-year average of 87%. Corn emergence stands at 49% compared to the average of 65%. Soybean planting has reached 66% complete, an increase from 23% 3 weeks ago, yet it remains below the 5-year average of 77%. Soybean emergence is at 42%, trailing the average of 53%. Winter wheat development is progressing well, with 86% of the crop headed, slightly ahead of the 5-year average of 82%. Stay tuned. We'll be back with today's weather after this.
If your summer road trip leads you to Ohio's farm country, be sure to share the road with Ohio's farmers. Farm machinery moves slowly, makes wide turns, and needs extra space to avoid obstacles like mailboxes and guardrails. Let's all be mindful and make sure everyone gets home safe and sound this year. This message brought to you by the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
You're tuned in on the Ohio AgNet. Today's weather brought to us by Seat Consultants. Simply better performance online at seatconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
We've got another dry day across the Buckeye State today, squeezing out most of tomorrow as well. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag weather update. We've got a significant frontal boundary building to our west, but it does not give us anything today. Ahead of it, we see strong southwest flow. Temperatures are going to creep up nicely. Humidity values are up as well, so it's going to feel quite hot through your Tuesday. I think we see that frontal boundary throw a little bit of cloud cover and moisture into northwest Ohio as we move through tomorrow morning and midday, but it does not advance any farther to the south and east. So I think most of the state can get another day to work in the fields tomorrow, a day that is rain-free. Now, tomorrow night through Thursday, scattered showers start to work in here, and then we see several other waves of moisture move up this stalled frontal boundary for Thursday night and through Friday, and I think in some cases here, maybe into early Saturday morning. Right now, I'm looking for a combined 3-day set of rain totals to be anywhere from 1/2 to 2 inches easily, with coverage at around 90% of the Buckeye State. So, yes, we've got rain coming the second half of the week. We dry down Saturday midday and afternoon. We are dry Sunday. Have a few scattered showers that try and pop up next Monday morning to midday in western parts of Ohio, but they fall apart fairly quickly. Dry for next Tuesday, dry Wednesday, Thursday, seeing a little bit of chance of moisture late in the weekend of the 14th and 15th. That's the way your forecast is stacking up. Gear up for some bigger rains later this week. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, record ethanol production slows ahead of summer driving. The United States has churned out record levels of ethanol since late 2024, largely due to the rise in exports and steady domestic demand. Output has dropped from record levels during the last 2 weeks, which coincides with the buildup of the summer driving season. The U.S. does have large stockpiles of ethanol that can offset some of the lower production levels in the short term, but exports and domestic travel trends will have to be watched in the coming weeks and months when fuel demand typically hits its highest point of the year. During the last 4 weeks ending on May 23rd, America's ethanol production averaged about 1.026 million barrels per day. That's the best for the period in the last 6 years, but behind levels of 6 and 7 years ago. U.S. gasoline demand hasn't been as impressive, with rates similar to year-ago levels. Well, what was the impact of lower prices received in April by poultry and egg growers on the USDA latest look at what ag producers received price-wise for their products? Let's check in with Rod Bain from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Poultry and egg producers nationwide received less price-wise for their products in April, a 20% decline. That affected USDA's livestock prices received index, as producers noted an 8% decrease from the previous month. And that impacted USDA's latest agricultural prices received index, resulting in a 3.6% month-over-month decline. In addition to poultry and eggs, dairy producers also received less price-wise from March to April, offsetting a 2.4% increase in prices received by meat animal growers. The lower livestock production index in April offset an almost 5% rise in prices received by crop producers. Most of the boost was provided by fruit and tree nut growers, who received 12% more price-wise for their commodities in April, and a slight uptick in prices producers received for feed grains. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Hey, thanks, Rod, for the update. Well, the U.S. Senate is back this week facing a big challenge to pass the president's One Big Beautiful tax and spending bill, which includes key measures for agriculture. June could be a turning point for extending the Trump's 2017 tax cuts and enacting the most impactful parts of a new farm bill. Before returning to Washington, D.C., Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
The average family that makes $80,000 a year is going to see a $1,700 tax increase if Congress doesn't act.
That includes a halving of the standard deduction, child tax credit, and estate tax exemption, which the House passed bill more than doubles. The bill includes much-needed farm bill improvements like better reference prices and crop insurance support. It also includes key ag import expensing and small business tax breaks. Thune wants to improve upon the House bill.
One of which would be to make some of these tax provisions permanent. I talked about a growing economy. There are certain policies that generate growth in the economy, and that ultimately is what you want. That's a rising tide lifts all the boats.
Thune faces a tough balancing act to pass the reworked bill with competing GOP factions on Medicaid, deficit reduction, and the debt limit, and is only able to lose 3 GOP votes without Democratic help. Stay tuned. We'll be back with your grain analysis and your overnight markets after this.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals. Your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
Those long days in a tractor cab can really put a cramp in your body. So while refueling or refilling your equipment, walk around the tractor a few times or do a few head-to-toe stretching exercises. When fatigue does set in, that's when injuries and mistakes happen. Know when it's time to take a break and recharge. Let's make sure everyone gets home safe and sound. This message from the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
It's now time for today's market analysis, which is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished the Monday session on a mixed note. We were higher on wheat, but in Kansas City and Chicago, we finished well off of the highs. And on corn and beans, we were lower. Several things in the marketplace yesterday. The grain rally cooled off significantly amid a modest threat in world wheat supplies. And we're also seeing a backdrop of military tensions in the Black Sea. We mentioned yesterday Ukraine's big foray into Russia. Things have not really calmed down there just yet, but the market seemed to be a little bit more comfortable with how things were going as the day went on, as we came off of double-digit highs in the wheat market. A U.S.-China trade deal or otherwise adverse U.S. weather that is going to be needed to sustain any kind of Board of Trade price recovery overall. As we take a look at the corn and soybean side of things, USDA indicated that for the week ending May 29th, the U.S. shipped about 62 million bushels of corn, only 9.8 million bushels of beans, 23.3 million bushels of wheat. For the respective crop years to date, the U.S. is ahead on corn 28% year-on-year, up 11% year-on-year on beans, 17% higher year-on-year on wheat. The recent surge in U.S. wheat exports makes the WASDE forecast for wheat exports appear more accurate at 820 million bushels. It still is an expectation that corn needs to see export totals go up just a little bit. There are a few weather issues that are present in Canada and the center east in China, but otherwise market excitement yesterday was limited on the weather side of things. Assuming 10-day forecasts verify, negative central U.S. soil moisture anomalies will be relegated to eastern Nebraska and western Iowa and far northern Illinois. Everybody else is on track to pick up some decent moisture over the course of the next 2 weeks or so. Notably absent in the market chatter yesterday, much of anything regarding China or soybeans, and that really comes back to that U.S.-China trade talks scenario. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Now looking at your overnight trade brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. July corn, 435.5. down 2 3/4. December new crop corn, 435 1/4, down 1/2. July soybeans, 1034 3/4, up 1 1/4. November soybeans, 1017 1/2, up 1/2. And July wheat, 534 3/4, down 4 1/4. In livestock from yesterday's close, June live cattle $216.55, up $1.07. August live cattle $211, up $1.65. June lean hogs, $100.85, down 47 cents. July lean hogs, $104.97, up a nickel. September feeder cattle, $300.90, up $3.20. And October feeder cattle, $299.07, up $3.37. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Everett, and you're listening to the Ohio AgNet.